It was not so perfect of a day at Coco Cay for two of Royal Caribbean ships as they were forced to evacuate. Yes, you heard that correctly. They were forced to evacuate. Hey, what's going on, Adventure fam? Welcome back to Adventures Calling Us. I am your esteemed host, Eric, for today's episode. Now, today we're going to be talking about two ships that had to be evacuated out of Royal Caribbean's perfect day at Coco Cay. However, before we get there, let me give you a brief announcement. If you don't know, we just got back, Sarah and I, from the inaugural sailing on board the Icon of the Seas, and what an inaugural sailing it was. It was awesome. It was amazing. There was a lot of great things to like about it, and if you haven't checked out our other videos, I'll put a link in the description, but go check these out. There's a couple of videos that we've got up so far. We've got a few more that are coming on that series. There's some things that we got some critiques on, and we'll get to that in another video. But amazing. You can see it here. I'm rocking my new Icon of the Seas hoodie here that they were selling in the Royal shop. And look, it was an absolutely amazing trip. So if you haven't checked out those videos, go check them out. Now on to our story for today, which is that two Royal Caribbean ships had to be evacuated out of Perfect Day at Coco Cay. We've got the Freedom of the Seas and the Oasis of the Seas, and it looks like on February 6th that they had some major storms roll in. Now I got to tell you, we were at Perfect Day at Coco Cay on February 2nd, and the day was absolutely beautiful. Little overcast, no storms, however, and it was just a beautiful day for us. And so it looks like yesterday, February 6th, they had some major winds and major storms come through that shut down the pier and had to evacuate both ships that were there. Now on February 6th, like I said, they were having strong winds and poor weather come through Perfect Day at Coco Cay. And as such, around 1 p.m., everybody that were on those ships on the island started getting the call to go back to the actual ship. And that was around 1 p.m. The wind started to pick up, the waves started to pick up, and they were calling people back at 1 p.m. so they can shut down the pier. Now, at the same time that they were doing this, both ships, the Freedom of the Seas and the Oasis of the Seas, were actually shutting down the gangways as well, so people could not exit or offboard the ships to get onto the island. Now, there's some videos circulating online of some large crowds coming off of the island down the pier with some crew members and lifeguards directing traffic, encouraging people to stay engaged and stay moving so they can get back to the ship swiftly and promptly but safely. They were encouraging people to stay away from the edges, as you might imagine, with the large waves and the wind gusting. They don't want anybody falling into the water. Now, some other videos like the ones you're seeing here show the large waves crashing into the pier, and luckily nobody was on the pier. It looks like they had already cleared off the actual pier and the island of any patrons or guests, I should say, and it looks like everybody was already on the boat when that happened. So no injuries have been reported, and so once they got everybody on board, it was time to coordinate how they were going to actually leave Coco Cay, and between the two ships, they were able to figure out a way in order to do that. So once the guests were on board, the two ships of course had to coordinate on what they were going to do. Now the Freedom of the Seas was docked on the east side while the Oasis was docked on the west side. Now why this is important is because the Oasis of the Seas, which is the bigger of the two ships, was able to shield the Freedom of the Seas from much of the gale force winds, which allowed the Freedom of the Seas to actually pull away from the dock and take off from Coco Cay. Now, unfortunately, the same thing can't be said for the Oasis of the Seas, but because they were docked on the west side, they remained at the dock, not moored, not tethered to the dock, but because of the heavy winds pushing up against the Oasis of the Seas, the thrusters of the ship were not able to pull it away from the dock, which means they're actually still in Coco Cay. So they were unable to pull away safely, and so they're still there monitoring the weather situation, trying to weather out the storm. There's no ships that are scheduled to be in Coco Cay today, the 7th, which is great. Gives them the flexibility to kind of monitor the situation and leave when it's appropriate and safe. But of course, the main concern of Royal is making sure that the guests that are on board are safe and secure, and that everything remains as calm as possible. Now, the Oasis of the Seas is scheduled to be back in Miami on February 11th. They are currently doing a 7-night Western Caribbean cruise. However, the weather may hold them up from their other stops, which are Labadee, Nassau, and Jamaica. So depending on the weather, it may affect the rest of their itinerary. further details on that will be coming in the coming days, I am sure. Now, as far as the Freedom of the Seas, they are only on a 4-night Bahama cruise, which goes to Coco Cay and Nassau. They are due to return back to Miami on February 9th, which looks like they will be scheduled to do so on time. Now, they are monitoring the situation, of course, like I said before, and they do anticipate that the winds will die down tomorrow, February 8th, and that is when Liberty of the Seas and Allure of the Seas are supposed to make their way into Coco Cay. Hopefully that happens so those two ships can make their way into the port and they are not affected. But again, these are ongoing conditions that are frequently being monitored by Royal Caribbean. Now, heavy winds throughout the Caribbean and the Gulf have affected many cruise lines and many cruises. Most notably, the Voyager of the Seas. If you haven't seen, a few days ago, they encountered a storm on their way back to Galveston. And what ended up happening was the ship started getting flooded in certain spots. Dishes were flying off of the shelves. Things were getting moved around on the pool deck. You can see in the videos here, it was just absolute chaos. And they couldn't even correct it before the next sailing, which means future sailings got affected, and compensation offers from Royal actually went out to those that were sailing on the Voyager of the Seas over the next few weeks so that they can get the ship back in working order. So winter can be a pretty unpredictable time to cruise. We've had pretty good time. Most of the time we cruise in the summer, outside of some of the major hurricane seasons and things like that. But we have cruised in the winter before. We just did it on the inaugural, and we had perfect weather for the most part. I would say for about 99% of it. And so it can be unpredictable though, so keep that in mind when you're booking your cruise. It's certainly not something that any of us want to encounter, but it does happen. Mother Nature is Mother Nature, and we can't control that, right? So just keep that in mind when you're booking. So if you haven't checked out the Icon of the Seas series, we encourage you to do so. We also invite you to subscribe. Be a part of the Adventure fam. Don't miss out on the videos we're posting. I'm running an Ironman. We've got more trips coming up. We've got all kinds of different adventures that you're going to want to be a part of. So hit that subscribe button. Drop a like on this video if you found it helpful or entertaining. And we love you guys, and we will see you in the next video. Peace.